We're still waiting on the two, and I don't know where they are. Can somebody please get Sydney, Lee, and Kate? All right. Well, welcome everyone. Usually this will be our last installment in our Black History series, but we skipped two. So we're going to carry it into March a little bit. And to me, we should think about Black history every week, every day anyway, because they don't really teach it in the schools, do they? So, just when I was growing up, we were taught Black history in the church. Today, the church has kind of gone away from doing that, and they're just doing certain things. But really, the Black community back in the day had to totally rely on the church for everything, including our own history. So today, our installment will deal with church music and race relations. Okay, and so we're going to start, and it's interactive. We hope that all of you will be, that you will learn something and that we'll be able to bless you. You can take some of this home and not forget it and teach it to your kids, okay? So beginning with, it's going to start with me, and then I'm going to turn it over to Kaylin, Sydney, and Lee. And our musicians, where are our musicians at? Where's Brother Tony? Brother Tony, where is he? Okay, well, hopefully we won't get to his part before. Brother. All right, okay. So, let me get started then, because we got to move it along. Before slaves were free, before we were free, 1865, slavery music, or what they call slavery music, was inspired by African music. And so you would find oftentimes a lot of shouts accompanied by dancing, clapping, and foot tapping. All of this came over from Africa. The slaves, or the Black Africans, brought this to our shores here. And they could never do this inside of a church. They had to do a lot of this kind of stuff outside the church, in the fields is where they had to do it, because in the church, the music was very serene, and there was not going to be none of this foot clapping and dancing and all of that kind of stuff going on in there. So they had to do it outside the church. And they did not use hymn books. A lot of them did not know how to read, so they didn't have hymn books. So a lot of the songs were composed spontaneously on the spot by the slaves themselves while they were experiencing hard conditions of working in the field and being whooped. So these were called spiritual songs, Negro spirituals, or Christian songs, and they were all inspired by the message of Jesus Christ and the gospel. So if you know nothing else, by the time you leave here, all these old Negro spirituals, the lyrics were written by the slaves themselves. They weren't written, they were passed down by mouth, okay? And so they made these things up on the spot. So the first Negro spiritual that we're going to do is Kumbaya. And we want everybody to sing the words. And they should be on the overhead projector. And where's my sister? Where is she? I guess she stepped out. So, Brother Tony, can you kind of lead us in Kumbaya, my Lord? And everybody, please stand as we sing this old Negro spiritual. Yeah.
Kumbaya, my Lord, Kumbaya, Kumbaya, my Lord, Kumbaya, Kumbaya, my Lord, Kumbaya.
Thank you. That was just one verse of that. And what the slaves did with that song, that was language that mainly they understood. This song was initially here, and then it was a lot of slaves did escape and go back to Africa. They took this song back to Africa, and then it was transported back here by some other slaves that were brought here from Africa. And so you will hear them substituting words. Someone's praying, my Lord, kumbaya. Someone's crying, my Lord, kumbaya. So it's just really whatever they were feeling at the time while they were going through all of the hostilities of being slaves. So they would insert those words in there. So y'all can have a seat. That's the first interactive part. All right.
The song was composed by slaves on the spot, perhaps as a prayer request. Hence, come by here, my Lord, come by here. It was carried back to Africa by freed slaves who were sent back, where it was discovered by visiting missionaries who brought it back to the United States. Today, it's sung all over the world, wherever people ask for God's presence because someone's crying or someone's praying. Amen.
Most Negro spirituals concern what the Bible says and how to live with the Spirit of God. For example, dark days of bondage enlightened by the hope and faith that God will not leave the slaves alone. Many of the Negro spirituals were code songs. For example, when they were talking about escaping, they would use words like chariot or train or water.
Wade in the water. Wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Amen.
Wade in the Water gave secret code instruction to the fugitive slave on the run and on how to avoid capture. It told the slave which route to take to successfully make their way to freedom. Basically, it told the runaway slave to leave dry land and take water to throw off the bloodhounds because God's going to trouble the water.
1865 to 1925, after freedom and Reconstruction. Blacks were ashamed to sing slow moaning Negro spirituals, and they changed them up a little. They did not want to be reminded of being slaves, and to them, that's what the Negro spirituals were all about. Free blacks are now singing at churches instead of outside camps, with active participation of the congregation. Instead of being called Negro spirituals, the songs were now called church songs, jubilees, or holy roller songs. They took some of the old slave Negro spirituals and changed them into a call chant, which still survives today, even in this church. The preacher would sing one verse and the congregation answers with another verse. Listen, and then you join in, as our forefathers did more than 140 years ago.
We're going to sing Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, the call chant way. Brother Tom.
Swing low,
Yeah.
sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home.
Now, this song was a favorite of Harriet Tubman and was changed to the call chant after freedom. This song was composed by unknown slaves and was passed down orally by slaves with hopes that ultimately they would find comfort in the heavenly home. This song was also an Underground Railroad code song. So that completes our short, I guess, church song teaching lesson for you guys. And I hope that y'all can take something back from that and use it. And just remember that these old Negro spirituals, even though we're, a lot of us have forgotten what they are, if you go back, you can Google a lot of this stuff. If you go back and you look and you read the words of these songs, a lot of them will be a comfort to you guys today. Okay, because even though we're not in the type of bondage that we were back then physically, some of us still are in bondage with a lot of the things we do. So change up the words to some of these songs as the slaves did and apply it to your life. So I hope, hopefully that is going to be a blessing to a lot of you here. Thank you, girls. Sit down. That's the first part. The second part, Brother Lewis. Where's my other Brother Sample? All right. Okay. Our second part of the program deals with race relations. And this is part of our series, Who Am I? They're not going to tell you who they are, but I'm sure some of you will realize who they are after they get done speaking. Both of these men are very famous historical black figures, and both of them had a lot to do with race relations in our country. They used different ways to get there, though. Now, it's not Martin Luther King and it's not Malcolm X, okay? These men preceded Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, and so I'm going to get them up here and give them a chance to tell you a little bit about these men, and then you can figure out who they are and whose side you would land on today. I already know what side I would land on, but all right. So come on up, men. Let it begin. Well, I just want to know, I don't care which one of you start, but I want to know why you believe what you believe, and I want to know why you believe what you believe. And people, just pretend like you a bunch of black folks in there. I ain't gonna give that part away, but just pretend you're a bunch of black folks back in the day, and you're listening to these men, and you gotta decide which side you're gonna land on.
I was born in 1868 as a free man in Great Barrington, Massachusetts, one of the greatest black intellectual scholars and political thinkers of the late 19th and 20th century. I had a happy childhood, education, attended Fisk University, transferred.
He's special. He's special.
Attended Fisk University, transferred to Harvard University as undergrad, the first black to receive a PhD from Harvard University, studied in Europe, had bitter rival with Booker T. Washington, although he believed him to be sincere. However, Booker T. Washington believed that blacks should accommodate whites, be patient, and don't worry about attending the right to vote, don't worry about a college education in math and sciences and liberal arts. Booker T. believed that we should learn how to till the land, become farmers, etc. And if we do that, then we gain political, social, and economic equalities. I had no problem with some blacks working the land. I gained economic and social equality that way. However, also strongly believe that the change could be accomplished by developing a small group of college educated blacks called the Talented 10. I say no to Washington's strategy because it will keep whites oppressing blacks. Because under Washington's strategy, blacks could not fight back. Advocate political action and civil rights now. At the time, it would be late 1800s, and not be patient. Believe in full civil rights and full equality, not appeasement as Washington does. I helped founded the NAACP, but broke with them in 1948 because I felt they were too timid toward whites. I wrote several books, including The Souls of Black Folks and The Philadelphia Negro. Later in life, the 20th century, I became a communist after becoming disillusioned about the state of race relations in the U.S. and moved to Ghana. Died in 1963 on the eve of the March on Washington. Who am I?
Anybody? Oh, everybody.
Amen. I appreciate those words, my radical brother. But I have a different philosophy. First of all, I was born April 5th, 1856 in Hells Ford, Virginia. I was born to an enslaved woman and a white father. I was an educator, an author, orator. I advised Republican Presidents Theodore Roosevelt and William Howard Taft. I was an artful politician and maintained control with my ability to garner support from influential whites, black businesses, educational communities, and religious communities. Now, I helped the black community by cooperating with white people and getting support from wealthy philanthropists. The funds I raised have established and operate thousands of small community schools and institutions of higher learning for the betterment of blacks throughout the South. Now, my philosophy, the surest way for blacks to gain equal social rights was to demonstrate industry, thriftiness, intelligence, and property. Not beating down the doors of the white folks. Now, I was criticized by leaders of the NAACP for being what they call the great accommodator. Can we all just get along? I knew that confrontation with whites would be very disastrous for the black community. So the only way we would be able to move along our agenda was to cooperate with the whites. And I did much to improve the working relationship between the races. I helped blacks achieve higher education, financial power, and understanding of the U.S. legal system. And all of these things would pave the way for the civil rights movement of the 1960s. So my brother, whom y'all will have to guess, wanted to be a little more confrontational, wanted to stand on the fact that blacks were now free. I chose to say, we gotta work with these people. We have to, now all the while we're working with white people, I'm getting money that's funding, that's flowing back into our community. So there's no sense in, since we're just now free, there's no sense in flaunting that in front of the white man and have the white man cut off the funds that we sort of need. So I believe we should just see if we can work with them. Till the land, do whatever we need to do to make sure we don't cut off our supply. That's my simple philosophy. Now my brother will have you believe. Oh, you call me all the time. All the while I'm on the time, and I'm building schools. I'm helping folks out. That's my philosophy. So who am I? Oh,
They know.
no, one person didn't know. Pastor John, what you say?
No, that was Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois. So it just, so anyway, I would advise y'all to read up on these two men. They preceded Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. And when I was in college, I preferred W.E.B. Du Bois. I mean, when I was in college, because I was one of those, if I've got my college education, there's no white man that's going to tell me I can't use it. I'm not working no farm, I'm not working no land, I'm not doing any of that kind of stuff if I've got my college education. But you got Booker T. Washington, as he said, who knew how to get along with these white folks and had them build his school, Tuskegee Institute. So you got a little bit of both. Thank you so much, Jackie.